Good afternoon, I'm Amelia Hughes.
And I'm Laurie Finlayson, and welcome to the UWS News American Election Special.
America heads to the polls with the presidential election in full swing. Could Vice President Kamala Harris make history by becoming the first woman in the White House? Or will former President Donald Trump return for a second stint in office?
Here are the main Election Day headlines. Donald Trump has formed a relationship with Scotland through his visits to his golf courses, in particular Ayrshire's Tunbury Hotel. On the big day across the pond, the people who live near Tunbury give their opinions on the Republicans' frontman. Our reporter Ethan Barlow has more. 7 states will determine the future of the US election, with all eyes on Pennsylvania as one of the largest swing states considered to be crucial in this election, with 19 of the 538 seats up for grabs. Kamala Harris has finished her campaign in the key state of Pennsylvania and took to social media on X in a short time ago, addressing the country, saying, "America, this is your moment to make your voices heard." The early vote so far shows that Harris may have taken a slight lead after the neck-and-neck position this morning, so those final words could mean as much to the Democratic campaign.
And finally, sport hasn't been forgotten in this highly contested presidential election, as NBA and NFL players showed their support for either side. LA Lakers star LeBron James backs Harris, and San Francisco 49ers legend Nick Bosa stands by Trump.
And now, Ashley Murphy gets some expert opinion from a political scientist and UWS lecturer.
Latest polls suggest that this is the tightest race in US presidential election history ever. Currently, Harris has a slight lead over Trump. To find out more, we're joined by Professor of Political Science Murray Leith from the University of the West of Scotland and Daniel Twist, who lectures in broadcasting, also from the University of the West of Scotland. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you.
My first question is for both of you, but I'll come to you first, Dan. It's expected that this will be the most expensive campaign in American political history. Earlier today, Forbes magazine reported that the Harris campaign has outraised the Trump campaign by 5-1 in the last few days of the race. With this in mind, what impact do you think this will have on the outcome?
Well, I mean, you know, every year the money, or every time that there's an election in America, the money, they're spending more and more and more. And that, you know, I come at it the media perspective on that. So whether it's the ads that they have to run in the swing states, or it's the social media, especially there's huge targeting now on things like TikTok, because they want to really target a younger voting demographic. And it's also the ground game that they have to, when it comes to volunteers who are literally knocking on the door and all that huge amount of money that will go into that as well. So yeah, I think it potentially could have a positive outcome for Harris, because obviously you have more money, you've got more things to do, you've got more things to play with, I suppose. So I know that from my perspective that she's running a very good game on TikTok with a younger demographic. Whether that younger demographic will go out and vote is a different thing, because they're notorious for not voting. So whether they go out and vote this time, if they do, she'll probably win and get in the White House.
Yes, the same question to you, Professor.
Well, I think Dan hits a lot of the issues right on the head there, actually, and it's all about turnout. If money equated turnout, we'd have seen massively increasing turnouts in America over the last few elections, and we haven't. Turnout's increased very slightly, but it's still in the low 60% time, and we don't expect it to go much higher than that. If it goes higher, if it's say 65% turnout, then I think we're probably looking at Harris' victory for that reason. But the other thing is, it's not just the money the campaigns are spending, and Forbes are absolutely right. Harris has massively outspent Trump. But at the same time, there's a lot of money coming in from external sources, and there's been significant amounts of money coming in for Trump from other groups and organizations. And at the end of the day, I think we'll see when we look at the final listings, it's still going to be a wide gap, but it's actually going to be closer than the one we're looking at today. Let's not forget how much Elon Musk has been spending in the last week alone. Several $1 million on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, that leads in quite nicely to the question that I'm going to ask you next, Professor, and that is, what do you think have been the big issues in this campaign?
Donald Trump has probably been the biggest issue in this campaign. I think the issues changed dramatically. Remember, issues have actually been overshadowed by personality in the last couple of election cycles. And what we had was the issue was Biden was too old, he was too frail, he was too ill. Well, he stepped down. And then all of a sudden we stopped hearing about old and frail and ill as the issues. I mean, take for instance, the biggest issue for most Americans is the price of everything. Okay, the price of housing and the price of their, daily necessities, which have gone up massively in the last few years. And of course, the Harris campaign has mentioned that, Joe Biden brought in the Inflation Reduction Act, and guess what it did? Massively reduced inflation in America. But that doesn't mean prices went backwards, of course. Quite the opposite. They're just continuing to rise at a much smaller pace. So many people are looking back and thinking, yeah, actually, pre-pandemic was pretty good and Donald Trump was president. So that might be what's driving some of those. But the other big issues are also what might be driving some of the Democratic support. And what are those issues? Abortion. Abortion's a big issue. It's on the ballot in 10 states as well. There's a lot of women pushing it as the central issue. And then, of course, the other issue is immigration. But on that, the Democrats have actually begun to advocate for stronger immigration rules. So they've attempted to undermine the Republican Party. But I'd say the big issue on the ballot is Donald Trump. Do you like him? Are you going to vote for him? Or do you hate him? And are you going to vote for Harris? And at the end of the day, I think the issues have been drowned out by that kind of noise.
Well, yeah, we've been talking a lot about pros and cons and issues and what makes them both different as individuals. Dan, what do you think are their individual strengths and weaknesses?
Well, for Trump and Harris?
Yes.
Well, really just on what Professor said there about the idea that Trump is complete, what we would say in this country, Marmite. You either love him or you hate him. Now, you've got to think about Trump. He has been in the popular culture of America since the 1970s, okay? The vast majority of people voting today have grown up with Trump. And they've grown up with Trump, whether he has been the businessman, he's the outspoken man, he's the womanizer, he's the guy on the chat show who says certain things. He's then the guy who is the apprentice. He fires people, he hires people. He's the one who's going to be in charge of the United States PLC, okay? All those issues were very much part of why Trump was probably elected in 2016. He gets away with a lot of things. He says a lot of things that are outrageous. He gets away with it with the electorate because they're used to that from Trump, okay? It's his strength, but it's also his weakness, because what he says can really upset people. Certain people, it can galvanize a base. You never know, it might actually galvanize Harris base and the Democrat base. It's certainly when he's been sexist. I know recently on TikTok, and I won't repeat what he said, but we know what he said in 2016, which was on the video which was released about women. And there's young voters now watching that on TikTok and reacting to it and saying, Dad, how can you vote for this guy? Imagine if it was me. And that's a new audience that's coming to that, okay? So that might have a significant impact. When it comes to Harris, the thing is, a lot of people just don't know who she is. When Biden was elected 4 years ago, I kind of expected that they would just pass the baton on to Harris. Like he was an interim, let's get rid of Trump, and then we'll pass on to Harris. And then for 3 years, we didn't really see her. Didn't see her in the media, she wasn't out there, she wasn't someone who the American people knew. And then suddenly, when she had to come in July, very, very quickly, she has had to run a really well-run campaign to get the American people to understand who she is. That can be a weakness, but it can also be a strength, maybe, because people really think, well, we don't really know who she is. We quite like her. We also like that maybe she's a woman of colour. That might galvanise certain subgroups and certain groups within America. Mm-hmm. So, but the thing is, I think her weakness is people really don't know what her policies are, apart from the fact that, you know, she wants to change the abortion laws in America federally and nationally. And so every woman has that right to abortion. Across the United States, it doesn't go back to the states, which has only recently been sent back by the Supreme Court. So it'll be really interesting, personality-wise, who will come out on top in the next couple of days.
Yeah, both campaigns, they have produced very controversial ads over the past few months. Do you think any have stuck?
I don't think we'll be able to know that yet. All I can see is on social media, and that could also be the algorithms as well, but I've been seeing these ads about a woman who is in desperate need of an abortion, and it was a kind of acted out scene. That seems to be resonating a little bit. It seems to be retweeted a lot more, mm-hmm. and across X, across TikTok as well. There seems to be a lot that resonates with people. Another one which is quite interesting, the Harris campaign have been sending out is you don't have to vote like your partner, like your husband or your boyfriend. Mm-hmm. It's a secret ballot. That was an interesting ad. I think the other ad I've seen is where it's two guys and the so-called bro vote, which is who Trump's going for, saying, well, you know, you might vote for Trump, but they don't know that you're voting for Harris. And I think that's a very interesting psychology. So they've clearly done a lot of focus groups, a lot of research into that. Mm-hmm. Whether it will work for them, we just don't know yet.
So can I take you to January 20th, 2025. We've got a new president in the White House. What is the first priority for President Harris and what is the first priority for President Trump? I'll ask Professor Leaf that one first.
I think the first priority for Professor, there's the Freudian slip, ladies and gentlemen. I think the first priority for President Harris would be to try and project that sense of inclusivity that she's spoken of in the last few days, and project herself as a president for all of America. If she wins, she's got to heal. She's got to heal a divided nation. She's got to bring together people who haven't been not only just not talking to one another for the last few years, but are actively yelling at one another when they do speak. So I think she's going to be looking at introducing ideas and rules to maybe balance out what she sees some of the injustices in society. She's going to be, the interesting part is whether she's going to have, you know, a Republican Senate and a Republican House, or a Republican Senate and a Democrat House. So that's an issue. President Trump is probably going to be declaring that he's going to go after those who sought to undermine him and weaponize the courts. This is a man who's made it very plain that he's on a mission of revenge against what he sees as his political enemies. I'm afraid I don't see many positives that could be coming either for the US or internationally, on the international stage, that could be coming from the main priorities of Trump, which are strongly focused on some economic policies that will not be good for the United States, and some issues that will frankly not be good for countries like Ukraine or Taiwan.
And another question for you both again, but I'll ask you first, Dan, is if Kamala Harris wins, how impressive will her campaign be viewed afterwards?
Oh, I think it'll be hugely impressive. You know, I read a statistic where they contacted, in Philadelphia alone, over 800,000 voters within a week. And that was like knocking on doors and speaking to people over the phone. I think that figure's gone up even higher, and she's had a really impressive ground game. And what you mean by that is you can say all the things in the world, you can put as many attack ads as you want, but if you don't know who's going to vote for you, that is a problem. And so Today, Democrats, volunteers, and they'll vastly outweigh the Republicans in the absolute key states will be knocking on doors and telling people to go and vote. Because there's no point in doing all of this if you don't put your mark next to the candidate. And they will be doing that until polls close. And they've been doing that for weeks now. We've seen go and vote, 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 because of the early voting. So if we'll look at that and we'll go, that was a successful campaign. And if you can maybe compare it a little bit to the British election we had in July, that was kind of what Labour did. Labour had that knocking on doors, we know who our vote is. You have they give you an app which you use on your mobile phone. You knock on someone's door and say, which way were you going to vote? They indicate which way they're going to vote if they're going to tell you, and if they're your supporter, you go and knock on their door on election day and get them out and vote. And it's a really clever tool to find out. And they must have some really interesting statistics already within the Democratic and Republican Party. I think it's been quite reflective on seeing how both candidates are reacting with the media over the past couple of weeks, or especially the past couple of days. Trump's very much on the defensive, already saying that the election's going to be stolen. We should declare the election before polls close at whatever time, 11 o'clock, depending on the time across America. Where actually, Harris is very much talking about hope and renewal and bringing the country together. So they clearly have statistics to say that it's positive for one or the other. It just depends if they can get their vote out. And as Professor Leaf said, anything that's around the 65% turnout, Harris will win, without a doubt.
Do you agree with that, Professor?
Absolutely. The Get Out the Vote campaign from the Harris has been tremendous, whereas Trump's campaign on that has been abysmal. And where they did have a Get Out the Vote campaign in several states, they outsourced it. And it clearly has not worked very effectively at all. But then Trump's base, Trump's supporters were probably going to vote for Trump anyway. The trick there, as they say, is not just putting the, filling in the little ballot box for your candidate. It's making sure that they don't vote for the other person. And I've heard possibilities of up to 10% of Republicans voting against Trump. And if that happens, he's toast.
Mm-hmm. Well, one last question for you both is, who do you think will win?
Is that to me or is that
to you both?
So me first, okay. I'm going to put my neck on the line. I think Harris is going to win. I think Harris will win. I think she won't take all the swing states, but she will take the majority of them, including Pennsylvania. And I think that'll just be down to her ground game and her being able to run a very effective campaign. So I'm going to step my neck on the line and say Harris is going to win.
Professor?
Well, I often say my gut, my heart, and my mind argue about who they think is going to win. All the evidence right now indicates it's going to be really close, but marginally in favor of Trump from the polling data that we have. But then we all know marginal just means literally that, marginal. If we go on the strength of the campaign, then I think Harris is going to win. But never underestimate the ability of voters to make choices that leave us all scratching our heads.
Well, that is the end of our interview. Thank you both for joining us today.
The 2024 presidential election has been like no other, with two separate assassination attempts on Donald Trump. Ryan Niven reports more.
Today, America decides. The 2024 presidential election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Today we're going to take a look inside the assassination attempts on Donald Trump during the election campaign. We will ask people whether they think it was a staged event by Mr. Trump to gain supporters, or whether a genuine assassination attempt was made. Assassinations in America have long been a thing in the political sphere, with JFK, Ronald Reagan among the few who have had attempts on their life. We will try and uncover the truth and see whether Donald Trump set it up, or did someone try and take his life. With America having a number of assassination attempts on former presidents and current presidents.
That's probably because of their gun laws. because they have absolutely no idea what they're doing with their gun laws, and they refuse to change them. And every president, or a majority of presidents that have been assassinated, have probably been killed by guns.
Yeah, because they give everyone guns, which they shouldn't. Because, like, obviously that's a big problem, because people end up, you know, picking up a gun from their local store while they're buying, like, peanut butter or something.
With the American election taking place today, I ask, who will step into the White House come January?
I'd like to say it was Kamala Harris, but I think the Americans are far more scared of having a woman as...
I dearly hope it is anyone who isn't Trump. I was a big fan of JFK Jr., just because I was really hoping, because he seemed like he knew what he was talking about a little bit, he seemed passionate, and then he joined Trump, unfortunately, which kind of ruined it for me.
So there you have it. America needs stricter gun control laws, and we won't see as many assassination attempts. Who will win the election? Nobody knows. It will be a close one. I'm Ryan Niven, UWS News.
So we're here with Hamza Amir Ahmed, who has been looking at the kind of candidates and what they stand for. So Hamza, give us the lowdown.
So Kamala Harris, firstly, she wants to restore the Roe against Wade precedent on abortion. She also wants to improve the middle class. This has been a very big talking point. She wants to reduce the costs and increase economic security. There's also been information from her camp about rent and home ownership. She wants to provide first-time buyers with up to $25,000 to help with down payments. And she also wants to make 3 million more rental and affordable homes. She also wants to help small businesses. She wants to increase startup expense tax reduction, and that's going to be an increase from $5,000 to $25,000, so a big jump. And she wants to create 25 million more new business applications. Now, just to put that into context, that's 10 million more than Trump promised in his first term. With regards to healthcare, she wants to make permanent the current Biden and Harris tax credit enhancements. And what that'll do is that'll save $800 a year for millions of Americans. She wants to increase taxes for the wealthy, improve the education system, lower energy costs, and just tackle climate issues as well.
Yeah, and you say a lot about Kamala Harris there, but what about Donald Trump?
So with Trump, he wants to carry out what is being noted as the largest deportation in American history, with the issues regarding the immigrants. This is what has been touted from his camp. He wants to make changes to the economy, so he wants to add a tariff of 10 to 20% to all non-domestic goods sold in the country. He wants to add a 60% tariff on goods from China, and he wants to eventually, over a 4-year plan, phase out all Chinese imports. He wants to cut tax across all classes. In education, he wants to make America the highest spending country per pupil, provide $10,000 per child tax, and that would be free to all homeschoolers. He also wants to make available this. He also wants homeschoolers to have the same experiences that in-schoolers have. And with climate and energy, he wants to leave the Paris Accord again. As you know, Biden put them back in, and he wants to take them back out. He wants to lower energy costs by 50% within his first year, and he wants to make America the country with the lowest energy costing in the world.
Wow, very much contrasting from the both of them, but very, just very kind of different ways of, looking at it. And of course, with Kamala Harris, it could potentially make history with being the first female president. They've tried before with the likes of Hillary Clinton. It didn't come off. How likely do you think it is that maybe we could see some history?
Honestly, I couldn't say. It's very, very close, and no one at this rate can pick a winner at all, because there's so many factors at play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be really tough to call and really interesting to watch over the next wee while. I mean, it could take up until, you don't know, it could take up until January for decisions to come to fruition. Time will very much tell.
Let's hope that's not the case.
Yeah, fingers crossed it comes a little bit quicker. But thank you very much, Hamza, for taking the time to research into the candidates for UWS News.
Thank you.
And that's all we have time for today on UWS News' election special. Hopefully we find out the candidate before too long, but time will very much tell. who will be up late at night to get the first result.